Well, stunning jobs report on Friday. Stunning because the administration and its friends in the mainstream media were girding us to expect a terrible jobs report because of the partial government shutdown. Well, it wasn't terrible. In fact, the 204,000 new jobs created were twice as many as what some economists were expecting. And John, you say this proves we can survive just fine without big government, right?
Of course, there's no. Anytime the government sector shrinks, that means that the private sector grows. When you look at how companies are formed, they are formed based on investment. So if government's consuming less capital, that means there's more capital in the private sector. Companies form and jobs are created. This would always be a good thing for an economy. We should have kept the government shut down longer.
Rich, yeah, it sort of reminds you, Rich Karlgaard, of what happened with the sequester. Everybody, the administration, all the friends in the media were saying, oh, it's going to be terrible, your life won't be the same. Well, we did it. It hasn't been too bad, has it?
Well, America's the land of enterprise and of incredibly productive enterprisers, and it just shows you that even bad policy coming out of Washington really can't kill that spirit. And by bad policy, we have the administration, we have Congress, the Senate, the runaway federal bureaucracy, unstable money. These are a lot of headwinds that have hit America. I think we should be growing at 4%.
And Rick, even the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the institution that comes out with these figures, said really there was no discernible impact from this partial government shutdown in the jobs numbers.
Yeah, that's apparently true, although I have to say the argument that this somehow boosted employment is pretty interesting, because what you're really saying is everybody got together.
No. Hold on. Don't misquote anybody. We're not saying it boosted unemployment. The fact is that it didn't have as detrimental an effect on employment. The economy's rolling along even with a smaller government.
Well, it's 17 days where unfortunately we also lost $25 billion in economic action, and we also lost $6 billion of government expenditure. Again, I don't understand why that's funny. That's pretty real. But so what's the point you're making? What's the point you're making? That because government shut down and people have already planned their employment figures for the next month, this is relevant?
Mike, the point that we're holding is that you ask a question. Wait, Rick. You ask questions and give us a chance to answer. Rick, the point is, Mike Ozanian, is that we had GDP figures this week that were up a little bit, despite the sequester, despite the government shutdown. It looks like the economy can work without the big government, right?
You're absolutely right, David. We've been actually taking a page out of Bill Clinton's playbook, who shrunk the government relative to the overall economy. Before the shutdown, the expectation was that the economy was going to grow by 1.8% in the third quarter. Now they're saying 2.8% growth. Good. And we saw the same thing during the sequester. They were expecting growth of 2.5% in the second quarter, 1.7%. It came in at 2.5%. Why? Faster growth in the private sector. That's exactly what happened when Bill Clinton was president.
And Emac, on Friday morning, I was listening to NPR most of the morning, and they were talking about these dire consequences of government shutdown. They expect a terrible jobs report. It's all because of the government shutdown. It didn't happen.
It didn't happen. And what Mike is referring to is, I went on and did a web search. Thousands of news stories came out saying the government shutdown would hurt the U.S. economy. And the projection was it would shave nearly a percentage point off of GDP growth. It didn't. It did not do that. GDP growth is up at 2.8%. And Rick Karlgaard is right. We need to be growing at 3.5% to 4%. I'm thinking we are in the United States of amnesia right now, as Gore Vidal would say. Why are we so dependent on what the government does? We have been through decades before of crises where the U.S. economy has come out of it because the private sector has stepped up to the plate. 212,000 jobs created by the private sector just this past report.
So, Steve, what about John Tammy's point? Maybe we should have kept the government shut down even longer.
Well, John's right. The less government, the more chance you have for the private sector to grow, which is how you create real wealth. Well, we shouldn't break out the champagne too quickly, David, because the government shutdown did skew the survey. You had more companies reporting on the establishment survey. That might have skewed the numbers, and the household survey was not very good. So I think we wait another month to see how strong the job market really is.
Well, John Tamny, this is not to say that the economy is doing swimmingly. If it was, we'd be growing about over 3%, right?
No, it's not. But I mean, it's got to be remembered, government has no resources. When Rick talks about 25 billion lost, that was 25 billion initially taken from us. And it goes back to a point we've talked about a lot on here. Would you rather John Boehner and Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi allocating capital, or would you rather have capitalists allocate capital? We know who can drive growth and we know who can restrain it. Anytime we shrink government, real capitalists deploy it in a way that makes us more prosperous.
Rick, go ahead.
Confused, because when I tried to raise the question before as to if you're saying that the shutdown resulted in more employment, you said I was going off point. But David, I just heard you say maybe we should keep the government shut down more often.
That was a question, Rick.
So
that was
what
not
are
a
we
statement.
saying?
That was a question. Go ahead, Mike.
Look, we just have to go back to Joe
Okay,
Biden
switch it.
defending the Obama stimulus, where he said more government spending, more government borrowing, that was the way out of this recession.
Yeah.
Because he said any month now we'll be adding 250,000 jobs on average a month. That never happened.
Yeah, you know what? You know what? Joe Biden's Twitter hashtag reads right now. Hashtag my thoughts are facts, because what I say is a fact, and what I think is a fact, and it's not a fact. I'm sorry, it's not.
That's got to be the last word. So if your contractor botches a job at your house, do you keep hiring them to do even more jobs? Well, guess what the government just did with the company behind the glitch-ridden healthcare website. That's at the bottom of the hour. But first up right here, can't pass new tax hikes? Well, then